Okay, let's kick this off. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and welcome to the November session of Ask the Experts. Today's topic is how to manage Linux OS and applications utilizing the Avassa Wind River integration. And we have two experts with us today. We have Tomas Holmberg, who is the product line manager at Wind River, and we have Fredrik Jansson, who is our very own senior solution architect here at Avassa. So we have a bunch of topics to cover today. Fredrik, you can help me keep everyone up by moving to the next slide. So first, we're going to hear a little intro about Wind River Elixir and about Wind River Linux from Tomas. And then follows three different demos. We're going to look at how you install an edge enforcer on Wind River. We're going to perform an OS upgrade, and we're also going to look at deploying an Elixir-based application using the Avassa Edge platform. And while we do this, feel free to post questions to both Fredrik and Tomas in the chat, and we'll either cover them during the session or else we'll definitely cover them at the end of these sessions. So it's very welcome to chip in if you have any questions or thoughts during the session. And with that, I'm going to hand over to you, Tomas.
Yeah, so thank you, Amy, Fredrik, for giving this opportunity. So I'm the product line manager for Wind River Linux, but I will also talk about Elixir today. So I started with this picture. It pretty much maps out edge to cloud when it comes to this is like a telco scenario, but it also applies to like industrial and other verticals. Going from left to right, we have intelligent sensors. They normally run 32-bit ARMs or RISC-V, so these kind of things. Coming to intelligent gateways, intelligent edge, there you can run AI applications. They normally situated maybe in a factory or maybe in an office where it's close to the sensors or other users or factory equipment or whatever. And then going closer to the edge, you have something called far edge. They are still small, but I mean they are more server-like. You're starting to see x86, but you still see ARM in this area. And then you have regional data center with classical server kind of 1U, 2U servers running Intel, AMD, or others, x86 kind of things. And then you have the public cloud where you find more of a specialized hardware these days. And if we start to look at how we work in open source when it comes to this picture, Zephyr project we founded a long time ago, or we contributed it to the Linux Foundation. I think it was Linux Foundation. So this was we acquired a company, we had a product, and then this didn't really fit, so we gave it to open source. It's an open source project that really thrives and have plenty of support. And this is for the smaller ones, the 32 bits without an MMU. And then we also part and a founding member of the Yocto project, which is also used for building Wind River Linux. So the Yocto project is about 15 years old. It's based also on another project called Open Embedded. And that is to create these embedded kind of system, highly configurable to the needs of the specific use cases. It can be cars, it can be telecom equipment like radios, it can be medical equipment, etc. You can also use Yocto to build server kind of things when you really need to configure things, but it's more common there to use a binary distribution. We're also very active in a product called Starling X that is a foundation for our cloud platform, which is another product. I will not talk much about that, but our legacy is from a real-time operating system and VxWorks. So VxWorks is something you see in satellites, you see it on the Mars rovers and these kind of cool things. We're talking about safe and secure, and you need to certify it's VxWorks. But then they have Wind River Linux, which is Yocto-based, and it's highly configured in the same way as an RTOS, but you build a distro with WinRiver Linux or Yocto. So Yocto is a distribution builder. So you can build whatever you want. So you can build something that looks like a Debian. You can build something that looks like something else. So Yocto projects contains a lot of recipes, source code to packages, libraries, and kernels and stuff. And then, so you get like a foundation, and then you create your distribution from that. I can also just mention we have something called WinRiver Cloud Platform, which is based on Kubernetes, low footprint, and we have a hypervisor. But recently we also started work with Debian. So Debian.
Can I ask a quick question on that, Thomas? So for your customers, when do they choose VxWorks and when do they choose WinRiver Linux? Because it seems to be an overlap there, at least from a distance.
Yeah. So I think the key is are you gonna certify this to run like an airplane, for instance? Then you can't really run WinRiver Linux. It will never be able to certify that thing. So that's an example. Also, if you read hard real time, if you have a robot and you want it to be safe in a way, so safe is when you protect the person, so the robot won't kill the person or a car. That said, we see also Linux being used more and more in these cases, but then you run Linux to do the normal stuff, and then you have something on the side making sure that Linux doesn't go bad, right? Doing something strange.
Okay, so like a supervisor.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really good question. But then we have Debian as well, and Debian is a binary distribution. You might have seen it if you're familiar with Linux. It's a foundation for several distributions. But we have founded something we call Elixir. It's a community project, where we try to make Debian a foundation for something that works from the edge to the cloud in a binary distribution kind of way. And from this community project, we provide and maintain a product called Pro. Basically meaning we handle support, we handle CV fixes, we do everything upstream, right? So it comes up to the Elixir project, so to say. But when it comes to these extra features, you need 24/7 support. Maybe you need cloud native solutions, etc. Then we have a role here to play.
Interesting. So if I have an application that works well on Debian, for example, I can expect it to work as well on Elixir, I guess.
Correct. So Debian, it's Debian compatible, and it's built on the Debian foundations. Anything that works on Debian works on Elixir. And it's more like hardening Debian, making sure it works in this context. So the goal of Elixir, I can show that actually in the next slide, it's Debian compatible, upstream first, low footprint, meaning we don't want to create this big beast. At the same time, we don't want to have it too small so it doesn't give value. But at the same time, so it's like a middle ground, but it's easier to extend something than to remove. So if you install a big thingy, you might want to start with ripping things out. And then when it comes to security, if you don't have a package with this vulnerability on the system, then you're secure. So smaller, you're secure. So just add the things you need. And then we have also, our pedigree from the real-time world and embedded. We have real-time kernel. We have these kind of things as well. And then we provide this Pro concept where we do migration, customization, certifications, and training and stuff. And it's a lot about these days about CVs, fixing known vulnerabilities. And the last year, the amount of CVs has increased enormously, specifically for the kernel, as the kernel, Linux kernel, has started to create a CV for almost every bug. So here's another picture that tries to describe what we're talking about. On the left-hand side, Yocto, also then WinRiver Linux, highly customizable. You can do whatever you want. You can build whatever distribution you want. And then, of course, there's some steps. There's a higher learning curve than others, but when you know the stuff, it's kind of easy because it's still Yocto. But then you have the middle ground. We call it distro-to-order, where you have the Elixir and you can kind of configure it for your needs. And then on the right-hand side, we also have this kind of Elixir and images that works out of the box. You install it on your server, and then you configure it afterwards. So this is a mix, and exactly how distro-to-order will work, how much you can configure, that I can't say today, but we are working on this concept, and it's really interesting actually. And I think you will demo some of this as well, Fredrik. Or do you have any questions, Fredrik?
Absolutely. When was Elixir released?
Yeah, so the community project was released at DevConf this summer. It was how to say, people liked the concept and thought it was a good idea. And then on the open source summit in September, I think it was, we launched the pro version or disclosed it. Yeah, so it's fairly new. So much more things will happen with this.
Yeah, but still built on a solid foundation as in Debian. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, the foundation of Debian is stability and secure, right? And that's what we build upon. Debian doesn't release until it's stable, which also fits our needs and our customer base.
Awesome.
Do you want to demo now, Fredrik? Stop sharing. So operating systems are not that sexy because it should just work, right? The things you do it's more visual.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so let's go into the demos. Share my screen here.
Yeah.
So as promised, there will be like 3 separate demos. In the first one, we will actually install an onboard. So we will install the Edge Enforcer on an Elixir host and onboard it into our control tower here that you can see. So this is actually Tomas's control tower, which you also may see that it's actually Wind River branded, but it's an Avassa control tower. Then in the second one, we will look at how Avassa can help with keeping Elixir up to date using our OS upgrade feature. And then the last one is really interesting, I think, and I will ask Tomas later to expand a bit on that. We will actually deploy a container-based application where the container application itself is actually built on Elixir. So yeah, we're going to run Elixir OS, and then we're going to deploy an Elixir-based container on top of that at the end. But one thing at a time. So let's look at this. So what I've prepared is, hopefully you can see my VNC. I won't spend too much time in here, but this is actually a VNC to an Elixir machine that I am running. So I'm going to log into this one. If you can't see this, don't worry. Again, I won't spend too much time in here, but hopefully you can see that it's an Elixir Linux 12. I call the machine Ask the Experts just because of today is today. So what I've also prepared, since this is VNC and I can't really cut and paste, typically we tell our customers to go here, go to links and commands, click install Edge Enforcer, copy this and paste. That is not super easy in VNC. So what I've done is I've actually prepared this in the background, so I can just hit enter here. So
but
here,
I must say, Fredrik, I mean, I played around with this, and it's quite easy to work with this. And the tutorials you have, I mean, it's self-explanatory. So I mean, it's really nice.
Do appreciate that. So this will kick off the installer. So I'll just hit enter here, and that goes pretty quick. And that's actually all I need to do. So now I'm gonna head back into the UI here and do a little refresh, and we can see that we have an unclaimed host. So this is actually that specific machine that just called home to the control tower. And if you've worked with us before, you know that you need to create some configuration to actually accept this machine into the control tower. So we're going to create a site here. I'm going to call it as the experts site, maybe. I'm going to add a label called OS type Elixir, and this will make sense shortly. And then I'm just going to click add to site here. Click submit, go back to view. And now that, so what actually happened in the background on that machine was that the installer is running there and it's waiting to be accepted. And that is actually what's happening here now. The machine is accepted. We start collecting metrics for it. But now if I click here, scroll down a bit, you can actually see it's an Elixir 12. This one is going to be important when we look at the OS upgrade. So it's currently running a 61027 kernel, and this guy has 4 gigabytes of RAM. So this is basically it to onboard a machine and let it into an Avassa, to the Avassa Edge platform, so to say. So with that, yeah.
Fredrik, also, I mean, you're running Elixir now, right? And WinRiver Linux also is a good fit for this because as Avassa, your solution is so small, or footprint is so small. So WinRiver Linux is also a perfect Linux host for this, I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah, good point. Really good point. Okie doke. So let's look at OS upgrades. So the way that OS upgrades work in Avassa, it's an optional feature. I want to stress that. If you have another solution to manage OS upgrades, you can use that. But the way we do it is that there is a generic OS upgrade component built into the Edge Enforcer and into the control tower. Then for the various distributions that we support, where Elixir is one of them, you actually deploy an OS upgrade agent. So I already have one of those loaded here called Elixir OS upgrade. So the only thing I will do is I will go up here and click redeploy. The system will see that it should be running on this particular site as well. So I'm going to click continue. And now we're deploying that OS upgrade agent to the new Ask the Expert sites. And what that gives me, if I go back to site here and I go to OS upgrade here, you can actually see that the system now understands that we have an OS upgrade agent running on that particular machine. And in this system, I've configured it to run OS upgrades on Thursdays at 1 in the morning. And this is something that our customers has asked for. If you have, let's say, a store, for example, you typically don't want to run automated OS upgrades during the day. So therefore, you can configure maintenance windows to run these overnight or maybe over weekends at some time that works for you. But now, if we all cross our fingers, I will trigger this manually in the hope that we will actually get a new kernel installed. So now the system instructed the OS upgrade worker that even though it's not within the maintenance window, that it's actually allowed to run the OS upgrade. And the hope here now is within a couple of seconds that this machine will restart with a new kernel installed.
Yeah, on the side we see Varberg as well. That's actually a machine that I can see from outside my office here. So these are real stuff.
Yeah. And now it actually happens. So now you can see it, you may be able to see it. It's actually disconnected. That's because there was a new kernel installed and the machine is actually rebooting. So if I go back to my VNC here, you can actually see that on the Grub landing page here. I can actually just hit enter to start it up. So now the machine is rebooting. And again, I want to stress this is typically something you do at the maintenance window when it doesn't affect your daily operations. But now coming back down here, scrolling down, we can actually see that we have a different kernel installed that we're up and running on. Cool. That's all I planned to show about OS upgrades. So now I'm gonna
Fredrik, can I chip in with a question I received in the chat?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I received the question whether the applications running on this machine are affected by the OS upgrade. And if not, is there a way to make sure?
That's it. That's a good question. So if you're, as we do here, running a single machine, if the site, so in the Avassa solution, you can actually cluster machines within a site. If you have a cluster of machines, meaning more than one, the Avassa system will actually make sure that only a single machine at a time is rebooted if a reboot is necessary. And we can also make sure, if you want, optionally, to move applications around while we reboot machines. So that we have thought of. In this case, when you have a single machine, if that machine reboots to get the new kernel, that will affect your applications during the restart.
But Fredrik, isn't it so also that, I mean, this update is a container in the machine, right? And you can create your own like update mechanism to fit your system, right?
Yes. Again, good question. So we supply a number of agents for a number of distributions where Elixir and Debian are two of those. And to your point, Thomas, if you have either another distribution that we, for some reason, haven't built an upgrade worker for, you can definitely do that yourself. So all of that is open source. Okie doke. So before
Thank you. And sorry, Fredrik, I'm gonna let you continue shortly. But I did receive another question. Where does it grab the kernel from? And what does the upgraded kernel mean? Is that the last version or is it the next supported one?
So I'm going to start answering, and then I think I'm going to hand it to Thomas. So the way Debian usually works is that it's going to grab the next kernel that is available. So in this case, from the Elixir package repository. But then maybe I should ask Thomas, can you say anything about when you will publish new kernel versions to the Elixir?
Yeah, I mean, it will follow the Debian kernel upstream, and exactly what the delta will be for a package is normally just 24 hours. But
Okay.
if it's kernel, I guess it can be if we want to add patches. I don't know exactly, but it's not the long. It's not the long wait. I mean, the goal is upstream all the time, upstream first. So.
Interesting. And then again, since it's Debian, I know for a fact that if you, for some reason, really want to stick to a certain kernel version, you can actually lock it in place so that the upgrader doesn't touch the kernel. But that said, as Thomas said, there are a lot of CVs and new CVs will come out that will affect the kernel. So you should probably keep up to date with the kernel releases.
Yes, it's highly recommended, I would say.
Okie doke. So now before we start looking at applications built on Elixir, can you say a couple of words, Thomas, on why is there a container like base that I can build applications on that is Elixir based?
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, containers simplifies things both from a development but also from a deployment point of view, I would say. And that is something that you at Avassa really have like captured. And but then there are different kind of containers. One I would like call a system container is almost like a VM, but you remove the kernel. So you have all this, you can have a lot of stuff on it. Then you have like the normal kind of container, sorry, where you have a bash, you have libraries, you have these kind of things. But I guess you show also this distroless container where it's just Python, and then you add your Python application. So you're not dependent on much. It's really lean. So you have these different ways and you could build up the container from the bottom depending on what your needs are, so to say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the distroless container seems to be really popular because Yeah, as you said, they're really small, which is nice when you think about maybe you want to distribute your application to thousands of locations, and then it's going to add up. I mean, every byte you can save. But then I'm also thinking that with the promises you make as Wind River around Elixir, it just feels good to build the container applications on a solid base as Elixir as well, versus using like any type of container of the internet.
Exactly, because we have full control of that container, making sure it's CV handled and anything. So if you have Bash or whatever you have, we make sure it's safe and secure, right? Or I would say secure. And also the benefit of having the same, if you're running Elixir in the bottom and Elixir container, you know that they have the same life cycle. I mean, containers will work on anything, almost. There are exceptions actually, but the thing that you have the same life cycle, you have the same software bill of material and these kind of things, we can help you when it comes to compliance and other things.
Cool. Yeah, so what I've done is I basically took the Elixir distroless container and I created a really stupid application that I called Elixir Python. So the only thing I'll do is I'm actually gonna redeploy this to run it on the new Ask the Expert sites as well. Oops, I picked the wrong. This one, click redeploy, continue. So now we're actually deploying this. It should be up and running there. And it's really hard to prove anything. So the only thing that this container really does is it's actually printing out when it starts the information that's in the container about what it's built upon. And as you can see, so this is also an Elixir 12, but it's a Python distroless, it's called. So it's super simple. You base your image from this one, and then you add your Python program, hopefully a bit more intelligent than my Python program was. But it was super simple to get started with. Where do I get this container from, Thomas?
Yeah, so this one, I assume you got it from is the GitLab instance. So it's Elixir. You can find on elixir.org. You can find download images and stuff, but you can also go to gitlab.com and Elixir, and you can see pipelines, how it built. You can find the containers, but you can also find containers on Docker Hub actually. So you just do the Docker clone and stuff. Cool. Or Podman or whatever you want.
Cool. Yeah, it was super simple. Okie doke, that's all I had for demo.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Maybe you can help me jump back to the slide deck. And since I want to be mindful of time, I want to make sure that your contact details is on the screen, because we do have very few moments left. But if there are any more questions for Thomas or Fredrik, feel free to go ahead and post them in the chat. And otherwise, awesome. Here is contact details for Fredrik, and I'm sure he can also forward any questions that you might have for Thomas, and we'd be happy to continue the conversation also beyond this session. So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining in, and if you're watching this recording at a later time, thank you for watching, and thank you very much, Thomas, for joining us at this Ask the Expert session. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much. You're more than welcome to join us next time. So keep an eye out for that. It will be in next year. And yeah, that wraps up today's Ask the Expert session.